Ladies, gentlemen, and brethren, we are live across the UK. Indeed, we're live across the world for this evening Solomon Live. My name is Brodie. I have the honour, the privilege of hosting these monthly webinars, and also I'm a very proud Worcestershire Freemason as well. And before we continue, I'd just like to take a second to dedicate this evening's show to a dear friend of mine and a Freemason who sadly passed away just a few weeks ago. He was a supporter of mine and a big fan of Solomon Live. And this evening's Solomon is dedicated to Jonathan Swift. Right then, without any further ado, let's begin. Engaging new Freemasons. What makes new and young Mason clubs so special? I'll introduce you to our special guest in just a second, but if you do have any questions that you'd like to put to them, you can do that via the question and answer facility on Zoom. I can't promise that I'll answer all of them, but I'll do my very best to get to as many as I can in the next 45 minutes or so. So, in typical fashion, good evening, brethren. How are we?
We're all good, thank you.
Right. Yeah, we're all good. Thank you.
Looking very good, brethren. Looking very good. Now, let's get to know you. So let's go around the screen. And I think it's a wise decision of mine to begin with the Provincial Grand Master of Hertfordshire, Neil Connolly. Sir, introduce yourself.
Okay, well, Neil Connolly, Provincial Grand Master of Hertfordshire, came into Masonry in 1991, having waited for a couple of years to get in, because in those days it was a bit of a queue. I'm a Lewis. My father has just celebrated 71 years in Masonry, so it's somewhere in the blood. And 2001 became Master. I was a Provincial Steward, Junior Warden, and then an APGM, and eventually became Provincial Grand Master. So that's it, really.
Really? Well, that's a lot, isn't it, sir? It's an honour to have you here this evening. And Chris, can I call you Chris? Is that okay? Would you mind?
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah. I'll reserve me other name for Sundays or naughty.
That's all right. Yeah, you don't need to worry about that tonight. Chris, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, Chris Baldwin from St Werburgh Lodge, number 4147, in the province of Derbyshire. I've been a Mason only for a few years, 2 or 3 years, but love it, learns a lot, and love to get involved with things, which is why I'm here.
Brilliant. Well, so good to see you, Chris. Equally, likewise, Adam, you're down south. Introduce yourself, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Bradley. I've been a Mason since around 2018, and I'm the current chairman of the Connolly Club, London's club for young Freemasons.
Brilliant. And am I right in assuming the first of its kind? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, founded in 2007, just off the back of a big conference held about young Masons and retention. Yeah, that's correct.
So we've got you to blame, you lot to blame. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much. And Matt, last but not least, introduce yourself and why you're here this evening.
Hi, I'm Matt Selby. I'm a Freemason in St Peter's Lodge, number 476 in Carmarthen in the province of West Wales. I've been a Freemason since 2018, and I'm also a Lewis because my father's also a Freemason.
Oh, that's lovely. That is a very special thing in Freemasonry, isn't it? Brethren, thank you for joining us here this evening. Now, Neil, I thought I could begin with you, actually, if you don't mind. So spending time with you just for a few minutes. So, brethren, you can relax just for a short time. Let's talk about new young Masons clubs, often referred to as light blues clubs. How did they begin, Neil? Why are they so important?
Well, probably Adam's the better one to answer that than me, as they did it first. But certainly from our perspective, it became fairly apparent, and almost right across the whole of Masonry, that we needed to have a little bit of something more than just our lodge and LFI experience. And also, because we have such a broad demographic, it's more about newer people into Masonry and keeping them engaged. So the purpose really was to engage new members into Masonry and really in a range of activities that would enhance not only their Masonic experience, but particularly in those early years where you have to get into the habit and to enjoy the progress of their own Masonic journey up to, say, Master of the Lodge and beyond. So it's those first early years. And I think that was really the key of it all, because we realized we were losing too many newer men to Masonry for a variety of reasons.
Okay, so that's the important reason why new young Masons clubs exist and why they're flourishing right now. But you've written a paper, haven't you, that was submitted to the Board of General Purposes. First of all, how did you get that job? And second of all, it was quite well received, wasn't it?
Well, I didn't duck quick enough is the answer to why I got the job. But what happens is that the Board of General Purposes really is the body that provides the guidance and governance for just about everything that we do in Freemasonry. Below that sits a thing called the Membership and Communications Working Party, and I happen to sit on that. And then below that are the regional communications groups, which are sort of clusters of half a dozen provinces. So that's how stuff cascades down. And I'm the representative for RCG7, which is the sort of East of England bit. And we were just talking about it. Hertfordshire's club has had some notoriety and some success. And from that point of view, and I had a heavy involvement in that when we started up about 8 years or so ago. And really, that was how I drew the gift that keeps on giving, as it were.
And the paper itself, just going back to that, that was well received, wasn't it, from the Board of General Purposes, which is a massive statement, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a statement not so much to my drafting abilities, but certainly to the importance that the Light Blues Young Masons entity has within the future of Freemasonry. And we're all generally familiar for what the strategy is, and it's to promote that engagement of new people. What we found was that most provinces, or many provinces and districts for that matter, had their own form of newer, younger Light Blues Masons clubs. And what we found was that there was quite a checkered history on the experience they were having. So the idea was originally to do a terms of reference very similar to the university scheme for all Light Blues, but we realized there wasn't a one fits all sort of solutions. So really it was to garner all of the opinions of the successes and challenges. And then as we go on later on, so we'll discuss some of those experiences and how that is beginning to hone into something that will be useful for those provinces that want to maintain and, if not start their own club.
Well, thank you, Neil. Thank you, sir, for putting that together. And as I said, it's a huge statement, isn't it, for the importance of New Young Masons clubs that's been reflected there. So, Chris, Adam, Matt, let's get to know you and your Light Blues clubs. Chris, you first of all, because you're on my screen in that order. Let's talk about your Light Blues club. How old is it? How long have you been going?
Well, certainly, I've not been in long, but certainly from a little bit before when I was in. But it's called the Porchway Club. And I mean, it shows how little I know, because I thought they were all called Porchway Clubs. I thought that was what they were called.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's called that. And whenever we're initiated, we're invited to join this particular WhatsApp group, which is the Porchway Club WhatsApp group, and that's how we do things. And there's also a Porchway Club tie, and we're encouraged to wear that at initiations. And it brings new Masons together to celebrate other new Masons, which is a great little concept that we do.
And realistically, how's the club going at the moment? Would you say that it's doing well, could do better? How would you describe how you're doing at the moment?
I mean, it feels positive. It feels like everyone's really supportive of one another, and helping each other along through their Masonic journey and career and stuff. But even coming on this call and hearing how other people do it is really interesting. Because there's always ways you can improve. There's always ways you can do things better.
And what about some of the unique activities that you do within the Porchway Club? Because that's one of the things I love about Freemasonry. You can go to a different lodge. It's completely different to another lodge. Certainly applies to the provinces and the Met, and the same applies to New Young Masons clubs as well. What would you say is your kind of unique point? Would you say some of the things that you do?
We seem to like our breakfasts.
Don't we all?
So yeah, there are regular breakfast meets, and that's one of the first times I met the other members of the Porchway Club was through a breakfast, and they do it all over the province as well. So you can go to sort of different places. If one isn't particularly close to you, you don't have to go to that one. But if there's one that is, then you can. You always meet new people there, and yeah, that was my first sort of glimpse into it, really.
I like the sound of that, though. So one of the things you're going to get this evening, everybody watching at home or wherever you are at the moment, you're probably going to get some ideas on what you can bring to your New Young Masons Club as well. So let's talk to Adam now. So Adam, Connaught Club, you're the chairman. It's a big old role you've got there. So let's talk briefly about how many members you've got at the moment and where you are in the terms of success.
Absolutely. So we've got about 220 members today. That's up from around 180 when I took the chairmanship. So we've got a slow but steady growth going on. That's about 10% of eligible Masons in Metropolitan. So obviously the Connaught Club's quite unique, and there's a couple of other clubs in the UK like us, but most aren't, in that we restrict ourselves to young Masons. That's Masons under 35. Sorry for those older. And
we don't by year, damn it.
We don't restrict to Light Blues, so you could be a 34-year-old Grand Officer and a member if you're so lucky to be one.
Oh, that's all right. That's good. And what would you say are some of the unique activities that you guys get up to? Because one thing I will say is when I've seen you on social media, you guys like to dine and dine well.
Yes, so we run about 38 events a year, which sounds like a lot, but when you're trying to engage a large number of people, it's really kind of the right number we've found. And we do host a lot of formal dinners, so our Christmas dinner has become quite legendary in Metropolitan. We have 80 attendees, and I certainly have never managed to get home before sort of 4 or 5 in the morning. And that's pretty good effort. And we heard from feedback last year that people wanted more formal dining, so now we do more formal dining. There's 2 other events a year, but that's on top of a trip abroad and shooting and go-karting and many other events we have.
That's a really good point there, Adam. What you've done is you've asked your membership, the brethren, what they want, and you've catered for that. It's not just you going out on a whim, isn't it? And what about some of the unique customs that you've got in the club? Well, is there any?
Unique customs. I mean, we give every member a tie and pin when they first join. Unlike a lot of provincial clubs, we charge a membership fee, and we use that fee to subsidise events throughout the year. We're quite lucky that over the last kind of what is it now, 27 years of Connaught Club, is that right? No, nearly 20 years of the Connaught Club.
17.
We've amassed quite a lot of capital, which we then use to fund quite expensive events for our members, which is quite a unique thing, I think, to have that kind of luxury.
Excellent. Well, things seem to be going very well for you, as we gathered from speaking to Chris as well. And Matt, perhaps you could tell us about your New Young Masons Club, your involvement, what makes it so special.
So my club is called the Mackworth Club. It was set up in 2018, so not long after I became a Freemason. I sort of got involved a bit more during COVID. I did online quizzes once a week for everyone, but they've also organised trips abroad. We just recently done a sea fishing trip, where we've gone out on about 10 of us have gone out on a boat and done catch and release. I think they're doing another one this Thursday, if the weather's all right. And then just done a couple of community projects as well. And when someone gets initiated or they come join into a lodge in the province, they get given automatically join. It's free, and they get given a tie pin and a little pin badge as well with the Mackworth Club logo on it.
And that sense of identity of wearing a New Young Masons tie and pin badge, it means a lot, and it creates conversations, doesn't it, as well, Neil? People notice those, and there's a message being sent out wearing that tie, isn't there?
Yeah, there's several things. We were a bit slow to pick up on the tie, but we had a very intriguing badge. Unfortunately, I haven't got one to show you, but it covers, the white stag of Hertfordshire. It's got the light blue background. It's got the sort of the liberal arts and sciences and various other bits and pieces on it, all in symbolism. But there's a little angle on the corner, which is 33 degrees. So it's all very subtle. So that always engenders conversation. We eventually got around to getting a tie, and they also have a lodge as well now.
Oh,
which
yes.
I was a little bit against it as a provincial Grand Master to have a dedicated light blues lodge, until we realised that there was actually a purpose, and that is that we're going through a bit of a contraction. We've had a number of lodges that have surrendered their warrants, and therefore it gave a focus for those people who are still on their progressive journey to join a lodge with other people whom they had already met within the club. So all these little things that give you an identity, you see them at a club event, they'll wear the club tie, they all have the badge at every event they go to. So it's almost, I was going to say a sect within a sect, but that can't say that really, can we? But it's a section or sector within one. And so that identity has added something special, I think, to it. And then, of course, all the members say, oh, I wish we'd had something like that when we were younger. I mean, there was certainly nothing around like that when I joined 33 years ago.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And a sense of identity as well, which is, of course, what being in a fraternal organisation is all about as well. So, brethren, we're going to get to a few more questions in a moment, but let's get to our chat screen right now. And Brian Sharrock. Brian, thank you for stopping by. Hope you're enjoying this great British summer that we're experiencing at the moment. The New and Young Masons Clubs Conference used to be an annual event. This allowed clubs to share best practice. Is there any intention to revive them? Sir, I'll naturally put that one back to you. Okay.
That's a very, very good question. And the answer is yes, it is. I think the New and Young Masons element was slipping down the agenda a little bit. And it's really since the last one, which I think was actually hosted by Hertfordshire back in 21, something like that. And it proved to be very successful. And we invited the Lady Masons as well. They came along, and that worked well. It's just really sort of, I think there was one person that was championing that, and he's sort of moved away or something, that sort of order. So the answer is yes, there will be an annual event. Yes, it's supported by the rulers, and watch this space.
Excellent. Well, listen, we'll look forward to that, because I attended two, one in Leicestershire, one in Hertfordshire, and I thought they were absolutely fantastic. It wasn't just an enjoyable experience, which of course it was. We all walked away learning lots as well. So let's get back to the rest of you. Let's talk about, how do you promote your club within the province or the Met? So Matt, can I begin with you on that one? How do you promote what you're doing?
So we've got a Facebook group and a WhatsApp group, so we share whatever things we're doing. That we also go and visit lodges, especially when there's initiation, and go and talk to the new initiate when just after they've been initiated, and tell them what the group, the club does, things like that. When we meet, add them to the WhatsApp group, stuff like that. And we've got a couple of different WhatsApp groups. We've got serious one, a not so serious one, and then one for going to organize visiting other lodges and things like that. And then if we've got a trip planned or something, we do an offshoot for that trip, then things like that. So it's not not in one WhatsApp group getting bombarded with loads of messages about stuff.
Well, that's really important, isn't it? So what you're doing, and it's important that all light blues clubs do this. It's a concerted effort to get new members, rather than just expecting them to join. What about you, Chris? How do you get new members join the club? What ways do you promote the great work you're doing in the Porchway Club?
Very, very similar to what Matt said, really. There's the initiation, there's the tie, there's the conversation around what the Porchway Club is, and then there's the invitation to the WhatsApp group, and everyone's given a very warm welcome in there. And really, that's a safe space for people to kind of ask. Sometimes you want to ask questions to the senior brethren. It might be like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to ask that. Let's ask it here, and everyone's going through that sort of similar journey themselves. So it's a really great place to ask questions, and also potentially escalate them to whoever needs to answer it to come back down again. But it's generally that really kind of supportive and safe space for everyone. So everyone feels really welcome and at home in there.
And have you thought about unique ways of getting new members to join? Because it's always an ongoing conversation, isn't it? Whether it's podcasts, it could be events. There's all sorts of different ways we can think of attracting new members to our new and young Masons clubs. Have you thought of anything that you're going to be doing further down the line there, Chris?
Well, we've just set up a podcast. I'm working on that with our Provincial Communications Officer, Andy Glaves, who spotted me amongst the crowd as someone to maybe work on that with. So yeah, we've developed that, and we're really enjoying doing it. So for Masons and non-Masons alike, but you're right, in particular it's a format that the new Masons particularly enjoy listening to.
Brilliant. Well, listen, well done with the work you're doing there. And Adam, we often say that things are a little bit different in the Met. So what do you do to gain new members? Do you find they're coming to you naturally, or do you still make a concerted effort to gain new members?
We still make a concerted effort. We do get some natural progression. We get a lot of Metropolitan Grand Inspectors who talk to new initiates and kind of push out in their letters and mailings about us and everything else. But we also have a poster outside every single lodge room in Freemasons Hall. We use TikTok and Instagram to really try and do some outreach. And not only do we act as a retention tool now, we also act as a slightly more of an attraction tool. And so we definitely had some members join because they saw us on TikTok or they saw us on Instagram, which is just quite a nice approach. And we visit lodges and we talk to people. People come visit our club's attached lodge, Burgoyne 902. We do a lot of second degrees for the university scheme and that kind of thing, and that kind of naturally attracts younger members as well.
Well, that's great, and that's working well for you as well, isn't it? And here's a question for you: how closely do you work in? And you've kind of already pointed us in this direction, Adam. So maybe Chris and Neil as well. How closely does the New Young Masons Club work with the province? I mean, Neil, they're very lucky to have you involved. When we were in Hertfordshire, you were a big part of that day, I recall, for the conference. So how closely do you work, or does the province work with the New Young Masons Club?
Well, very closely. We make our most excellent Grand Superintendent and our Provincial Grand Master are both the joint presidents of the club, so that helps with that engagement. I when I was an APGM, was assigned the club under my sort of portfolio. And look, there were some challenges in the early days, and we may touch on that later on as to what those challenges are, because I know other provinces have had similar experiences. And you just need to have perhaps a slightly more experienced mason, and that doesn't necessarily mean somebody who's older. It can be somebody, you know, who's just been in a few years but kind of gets it, and can steer a path through those early days to make sure that the objective of the club is maintained. And we've talked about that already. So yeah, that was what it is. I think having that recognition, it also means that if there are any splinter groups, and if you're only recognising one, then it helps their cause rather than the others.
Indeed, and I'll put this to just one more of you. What about you, Chris? How closely do you work with the province when it comes to your club?
It feels like the Portrait Club works really like in synergy with the province, but in particular in regards to the members pathway and that kind of thing. So it's a huge part of I know that our PGM is hugely supportive of what we do, and so is the membership officer, communications officer, and you know, everybody else sort of around that kind of table. So yeah, certainly in terms of guidance, learning about what we're doing, offering suggestions, offering improvements, you know, it's a hugely supportive endeavour, definitely.
And for me, being the former chairman of the Cubic Club in Worcestershire, I used to work incredibly closely with the province. In fact, it was something that I sought, and it was really useful for me as well. So that's from a Worcestershire point of view. But let's move on. Let's get back to the questions. And Tony Cable has been in touch. So, brethren, whoever wants to take this, first come, first served. Hi, my name is Brother Tony Cable, and I'm the chairman of the Norfolk Blues. In Norfolk, we are Blues for 5 years, whereas many other provinces, you are a blue until you get provincial honours. What are your thoughts on this? Now, this is an interesting one, isn't it? This is no doubt a conversation that has come up many a time in a light blue committee. Who wants to take that, brethren?
Well, shall I have a stab at it while the others think
go,
about it? Because the others haven't been in that long. So the way we've structured ours is I didn't want it to be a light blue versus dark blue entity. That was not the point of the thing. So what we have is you come in and can join as an initiate and are encouraged to do so. We do charge a nominal fee, because if you don't pay for anything that has no value, is my little mantra. Maybe that's the Scottish gene within me, but that's the way I think. And then we keep it right the way through. You can keep your membership until 2 years after you've had your first appointment in the province. So that could be, in our case, that could be 19 years. If it took you 10 years to get to the chair and 7 years to get your first appointment, then another 2 years beyond. That's an awful long time. Now, obviously, we haven't been in existence long enough for that to occur, but we've found that works well. And the best part about it is they can't hold an active office in the club when they're a dark blue, but it also has allowed me to identify talent, so much so that my membership officer and communications officer were drawn from that club pool. So, you know, it's a good way to get yourself noticed, but remember, you're going to have to be good.
Listen, sir, thank you for answering that question. That was a really interesting question. Brethren, if you've got anything else you'd like to add, don't worry if you haven't, we can move on. Any more thoughts on that, Adam?
Yeah, I was going to say similarly. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we admit grand officers. You can join the Connolly Club right from the day you're initiated at 18, but we will kick you out when you turn 35. So if you manage to obtain honours or rank in that period of time, you're welcome to stay. We very recently had some quite senior grand officers as members until they aged out of the club. But we do kick people out when they turn 35 regardless.
Oh, so cruel, so cruel. But no, one of the things I love about New and Young Masons clubs is the fact that we've all got our own identity and we're all allowed to do things slightly different, because we're all different people. Every area is different. So that's important, isn't it? Right, let's get back to some of the questions I'd like to ask you, brethren. What do you do in the wider community? Now, we know service is a massive part of Freemasonry, perhaps more important now than ever before. What does the club do in the wider community? Matt, perhaps you could tell us about what you do in West Wales.
Yeah, so one of the projects we did was there's a church that got damaged in a storm, like must have been about nearly 20 years ago, and it's just recently reopened as a climbing centre. But the Church of Wales only looks after half of the graveyard. The other half was left to be, covered in brambles, gravestones tipping over. So that there's a little local charity that set themselves up to maintain that. We went and helped go in couple of the brethren have got, you know, links to construction work and stuff. So they brought heavy machinery in, and we just completely restored some of the gravestones, made them safe,
Wow.
cleared the brambles, and then organised with a bit of help from PGM and the province donating to do a memorial to some, I think it's like 500 to 1,000 people that were buried in the graveyard with no markers because they were working in the workhouse in the 1800s. So there's a little memorial for them now as well. Along with that, we helped a local school clear out a rotten container sort of thing, so they had space to do sensory garden.
Oh, that's incredible. Couple of great examples there, Matt. I should imagine you, if I just had you on Solomon tonight, you'd probably be able to give me a few more. So, what is the effect on the brethren doing those wonderful voluntary acts of service? What do you get out of it?
So we found it was just a way, helping the community, but it was a way we could meet other Masons that were also in the club that we wouldn't normally meet, just have a laugh for the day, and then get to know. We went for like a pint and a curry afterwards, then just mainly to warm up, because we did one of them in January in like wet weather, so we were all drenched, covered in mud, going into a local curry house, just try and warm up.
Oh, I'll tell you what a lovely story. And that's what it's all about as well, isn't it? We can talk about service and doing great things for the community, but we've got to enjoy it as well. What about you, Chris? What are some of the things that you've done in Derbyshire?
I think this really means a lot to me, this idea of service, because, you know, it's one thing, isn't it, where we all get together and raise money and give money and do good through that way. But actually, you know, another thing that we can offer is our time. And I know a few of our sort of new and young Masons are maybe volunteered themselves or are trustees of charities, or, you know, that kind of thing. And just the other day, one of the members posted up saying that they were going to go and, you know, they do a regular thing where they feed the homeless. And asking if there was other people that wanted to join them doing that, and there were 3 or 4 that came forward, and that all worked out. So I think this shift towards, as well as being able to give money but give time as well, is a huge thing. It's a really great move.
Oh, so lovely to hear you talk like that, Chris. It really is, mate. And Adam, let's talk about the Connolly Club. What kind of things do you do in the wider community?
I mean, the Connolly Club raises money every year, so the chairman sets a charity every year what we're raising money for. Mine last year was MS Research, which is a personal cause to my heart. And we've also recently given £3,000 to the Up Against Time appeal for the ambulances in London. And we raised just over £1,000 at our last Christmas dinner. So, you know, we sort of raise and give money to charity every year, and it changes year on year.
Oh, that's really good. Well done, brethren. It's warms my heart hearing those wonderful things. And Neil, obviously you're here to represent the United Grand Lodge of England, but of course you're New and Young Masons Club in Hertfordshire as well. What kind of things have you seen in the wider community that makes you feel very, very proud?
Well, I think I'm standing in the shadow of giants with the 3 that have just gone before, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You know, that's very impressive. Our Light Blues have been involved in a number of things. Mind was a charity that we were particularly aligned to, because unfortunately we lost one of our brethren a few years ago, and therefore, you know, we felt quite strongly about that. And the guys did a number of years of doing events in association with that. We also align ourselves with our provincial stewards. So we've started to do things like we've helped with events at St Albans Abbey. And provided additional stewarding for things like when the Queen's Book of Remembrance was there. They have a Christmas fete. We do the annual pilgrimage. So there's a lot of these things where we're just trying to raise the Masonic profile within Hertfordshire. And you know, anyone that's young and enthusiastic and has got a bit of energy and good knees is obviously very welcome to get involved in some of these things that we do.
No, and we got that, didn't we, from that conversation? It's doing wonderful things. It's good to give, but it's also a lot of fun as well. Back to the questions, brethren, and this is an interesting one, as they always are. It'd be interesting to hear what Neil has to say on this, but of course the rest of you as well. Mike Norton's been in touch. Good evening, Mike. Hope you're having a very good. What day is it today? Is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday. There's merging in this week. He says, should Grand Lodge provide guidance to all Light Blues clubs so we can act with synergy? And this is the chairman of the Adair Club, the Light Blues Club for Somerset. So I'll put this one to you, Matt. Would you like to see Light Blues clubs coming together in a more formal way, if you will, or are you happy at how things are at the moment? Platform is yours.
No, I quite like it. It's, you know, another way to network with other clubs, especially like they, you know, do like what we're doing tonight, where we can share ideas of what, you know, what else we can do to further, you know, grow the clubs and things. And you know, if there's guidance on little bits of like, well, rules for the clubs and things or whatever, then it, you know, make sure it doesn't, you know, go off the beaten track sort of thing and become something that it's not meant to be.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And what about you, Chris? I mean, going back to that really interesting question, would you like to see more synergy of the clubs with an element of autonomy thrown in there for good measure?
I was going to say, I'm glad you said that, because it's a really interesting sort of debate, that, isn't it? That idea of autonomy and being able to do things in your own way, and then the idea of, you know, being told the best way to do it. And there are pros and cons for either. So, you know, some kind of, I don't know, exemplar sort of playbook as to, you know, what different people are doing really, really well might be a really nice way to spread some of these fantastic ideas, you know, for people to try out. But I think sometimes with things like this, the moment things become sort of mandatory and this is how you have to do it, I think that can remove some of the joy from some things, you know, every now and then.
Very good point. And Adam, before we get back to Neil, what's your thoughts on that? Would you like to see some more coming together? Because as I've alluded to, and we're all completely different, aren't we? All of our clubs, but you're particularly different down there. So how does that feel for you?
I mean, all for guidance and guidance notes. You know, the Connolly Club's been through many iterations, and we still make constitutional changes every year because things change around us. And you know, having some guidance for if you want to set up a new club in a new province would definitely be of great value. But I would be personally quite careful around providing any kind of governance or oversight across the UK or across the constitution, because provinces are different to each other. You know, metropolitan is very different to a province that has 40 or 50 lodges meeting. And I think it's important that clubs be given an autonomy underneath the province or metropolitan to enact their own kind of rules and regulations that work for them.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's not, Freemasonry is a great example of this. It's not one size fits all. What's your take on that, Neil?
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that the supplement to the paper that we alluded to earlier on was to produce a set of sort of a pro forma of guidelines or rules or a bit of a constitution for clubs. And it's been very carefully drafted so that you don't have the one size fits all. We used the word autonomy earlier on, and that's so important because clubs do need to have their own space to develop. Otherwise, they lose ownership. They shouldn't be diktats and edicts coming from on high. The constitution and governance really is just to provide guidance, you know, to make sure, as Matt said, to keep you within the rule book, as it were, and that's what that is. It's a general blueprint. The management of the club should be left to the club, but they should have route and access to somebody senior in the executive. So we've always had an APGM who's young at heart, who's been able to just provide that extra the guidance. We talked about the flexibility. Yeah, you're quite right. A province with maybe 50 to 75 lodges is going to have a very different demand to, say, a province with several hundred lodges. Also, the geographical spread and the way things work, you may have to have a north and a south or an east and a west, whatever section of the club. And then I think finally there has to be something that pulls all clubs together. And that's where we go back the full circle to the annual conference. And I think that, which is then endorsed by UGLE and by the rulers, will really just complete that full circle that has really been what we've been talking about tonight. So yeah, for those provinces that are out there that want to have a bit of an idea of how to set up a club and not sure how, we have that little guidelines for them, which will at least steer them on the right path to start with.
What a superb question. Thank you for submitting it. By the way, brethren, we're extremely honoured this evening to be joined by our assistant Grandmaster, Stephen Varley, sir. It was lovely to have you on, Solomon, just a short time ago. He says, remember the light blues, quarterly communication on May the 31st, 2025 at Freemasons. So we'll perhaps get to that in some more detail, but certainly didn't want to forget that from our illustrious guest who's joining us this evening. Right, brethren, honest conversation time. Not that we're not having an honest conversation already. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you've had or your committee perhaps have had in your light blues club. Come on. Let's get it off your chest. Matt, you first of all. Some of those challenges, because nothing in life is easy, is it?
No, one of the main challenges we've had is because we're across 3 counties, and the
Oh,
roads
of
are
course,
like
yes.
in good particular condition. I think between Carmarthen and Aberystwyth there's something like 50 miles. It takes about nearly 2 hours to drive, where you can drive from Carmarthen to Cardiff, which is 60 miles, in about an hour and a half in traffic. So that's a bit of a nightmare trying to organise events between there and getting everyone, making sure they can get home if they're going to a pub. So that's one of the challenges we've had, is trying to get the engagement across the 3 main towns in our county, sort of thing.
And how have you solved that? Just by spreading the events out?
What we've done is we've put they've got like members that are sort of like Mackworth representatives in each of those counties, and they'll organise their own little events, sort of thing, and then we'll get together and we'll try and do one big event in each, rotate it round then, or say, all right, we're going to Swansea for a fishing trip, sort of thing, and we're organize, do car shares up there, sort of thing. That
A lot of it's common sense, isn't it? And Adam, same question to you, really. I mean, you're the chairman, and when I was chairman of the Cuba Club, I had one or two interesting conversations during that time. All good fun. What about you? Some of the challenges you faced?
I mean, I've been on the committee since 2019. So I've had a bit of a run up into the chairmanship. I was a regular member, and then the secretary, and then the deputy chairman before I was the chairman. And certainly, we've certainly suffered from people not being able to give as much time as they initially thought to the committee, or committing to roles that perhaps their life changed around them and they were unable to deliver. And so finding people who are able to commit a lot of time and actively managing their time commitments to the club has certainly been a challenge for us and a learning process. We now run it more like a business. We do regular quarterly check-ins with all of our committee members. Certainly those with named roles. We have job description, and we have KPIs. And if people aren't meeting the KPIs, then we say, is this something you need to help with? Can we find you some assistance? Do you still want to do this job? And so we've kind of overcome those problems that we certainly had a few years ago, into becoming quite a well-oiled machine now.
Oh, it sounds like it as well. And same question to you, really, Chris. Some of the challenges that you've maybe have seen from afar, or you've been in the middle of, because as I said earlier, nothing's easy in life, is it? Nothing's straightforward.
No, one of the problems with being a successful club is that there's so many of you.
Yes, and that can be a challenge, can't it?
Yeah.
Victim of your own success, if you will.
Yeah, and what we've got is this kind of very, very busy WhatsApp group. And of course, obviously, the guidance is so it's not pinging you every 2 seconds. You pop it on mute, and then suddenly there's a few hundred messages to go through, and you're scrolling your way down it. And unfortunately, you just get a bit snowblind to it all. So you probably might miss some quite important information, or something that's kind of meaningful. The other thing is, obviously, with it being new and young Masons, is a lot of people are focused on family, a lot of people are focused on work, and what's already been alluded to is the sort of time commitment for other stuff. And I think it's important to be aware of that as a potential challenge for the light blue clubs.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Back to the question. And I wanted to get through as many as possible tonight, with us being joined by lots of light blues clubs and members within them. Aaron Garner, evening, Aaron. Hello, mate. He says, as current chairman of a Manchester Level Club, though it's hard work, we try hard to vary social learning sessions, visiting, and where possible, physical charity work. I'll be interested to know what is the most popular from those activities around the UK light blues clubs, or is it a variety sought after? So I'll tell you what, I'm just going to pick somebody to answer that question, because if you've looked at the time already, this is going far too quickly than I would like it to go. Matt, I'm going to put that to you. Have you found there's something that works particularly well? We found in Worcestershire our curry nights, and our lodge of instructions were particularly well attended. What about you?
Our curry nights were the most popular with us, but then we found people would drop off if we were doing them too much, or people moan that they couldn't travel to us. So we switched it up, like having variety, doing the charity work every now and again, having a quiz night, even if it's on Zoom sort of thing. We still do those every now and again, do one on Zoom. Again, just having variety, asking what people want to do. So that's where the fishing trips came about. Things like that, was the people like, oh, I quite fancy doing fishing. Think, right, we'll organise a trip. Trips abroad, we'll ask like, oh, where do people fancy going? We've been to Ypres, Bayeux, went to Ireland just before COVID. When COVID was just a poster, please wash your hands. That was that sort of thing. Yeah, just doing stuff like that, asking people what they want to do, getting their engagement.
But there's always something, isn't there? Because once again, going back to that, we're all completely different. What might work in another New and Young Masons Club may not work in a different patch. Neil, what have you found that works? So we're talking learning and development, social activities, all sorts of things. What really works in Hertfordshire that you think?
Okay, I think there's two parts to that. The first thing is getting to see other Masons and going to visit other lodges. We're fortunate enough, we have one lodge, which is the Hart Scots Lodge, which is allowed to do Scottish working with it under the UGLE, and that gives you quite a unique experience. So that one's usually quite popular. But I think activities that allow you to bring a partner and or your family along, which are far more inclusive. I spent a couple of years in Australia and got involved with the masonry out there. And the one thing I noticed that was a stark difference was just how family oriented masonry was somewhere like Australia. All right, the sun shines 200 days a year, but it's those sorts of activities I think are the ones that are the most popular with inclusivity.
Now, here's a lovely question for you, brethren, and I think you probably won't have to think too much about this. What have been some of those moments in your time or during your time in your New England Masons Club, your Light Blues Club, that have really warmed your heart, that you would say has been a huge success? So giving you an example once again, I remember when we could meet for what felt like an eternity, and the Cubic Club in Worcestershire, they held a family fun day. And we held this in Kidderminster. And I got really quite emotional to see everybody in one place again. It was absolutely fantastic. It happens every year now. That was probably the most special moment for me personally, where we could meet again and be together and enjoy a burger and, of course, the odd pint. What about you, Chris? What has been a real beautiful moment, a wonderful moment, a standout moment in your province?
It was really early doors for me, which was, I'd not long been in, and I was new to it all, and it was very overwhelming. And I remember I knew the people in my lodge. There were some lovely people in there, and they all were so nice. And then I took a chance and went somewhere because before I got there they were kind of, I suppose, strangers. And then when I got there, I thought, oh no, these are the same. These are the same as those other guys that were in there. These guys are all right as well. And it really just made me feel like actually wherever I go with this thing, I'm going to be welcomed, and everyone's going to have the same ethos and attitude. And that was a real thing for me to know that.
Oh, that's lovely. That's a great example. What about you, Adam? Any wonderful moments? And they don't necessarily have to be charity moments, do they? They could be. I mean, you've mentioned already, and not putting words in your mouth, but how many more new members you've got in the Connolly Club since you were chairman? So, any key moment that stood out for you?
For me, our key moment's always Christmas dinner.
Oh, yes.
And the last one we held, we had 80 young members at the In and Out Club. Almost a sold out event for us. And that room has, every year I go to one, and it's my favorite event of the year, and I will go to every single one I can until I age. They are absolutely fantastic events, and the energy that's in that room and the enthusiasm for everything that's going on around is great. And watching new members and older members come together, make friendships, and then go on.
Well, he'll come back. We lost him earlier, by the way. It didn't go unnoticed, but he'll be back in typical fashion. We'll get him back as soon as we possibly can. But he left us with a wonderful answer. And Matt, you're talking about charity, wonderful charity things that you've done. Has there been a key moment during your time in the club that really stands out for you?
Yeah, it's probably when we managed to get that memorial put up in that graveyard, because we had the PGM came down and the First Minister of Wales came down for it as well. So
wow,
all doing that. So yeah, that was probably the key moment, and we were all being able to share the pictures of us covered in mud, stood around what we were doing with the members of the local charity we were helping. That was probably a key moment.
Oh, well done, all of you. It's honestly, it's so inspirational to hear what you've got to say. Right, time for a couple more questions. And I'd like to talk about how can New England Masons clubs, Light Blues clubs, share learning across UGLE? That seems to be a real question that's coming from a number of people today. Various ways of putting it, but the same theme. How can we all come together and act as one, if you will? What about you, Chris? Any ideas that you would like to put out there?
I've seen things like the Derbyshire Circle, which is our sort of local kind of publication, and then also Freemasonry Today, where you see sort of great examples of things going on. I know there's that section of Freemasonry Today which is telling stories about the things that go on throughout the UK and the world really. And I don't know, maybe dedicate something to that, to some of the really interesting things that some of the light blues clubs are doing, and that goes out wide. Then lots of people see that, and that could be something that starts the conversation and starts people sharing things and sharing ideas.
It's a good shout. What about you, Adam? Any thoughts on us all coming together and I kind of hate this term, but sharing best practice? What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, we used to attend the NYMC conferences when they were operating, and we had a member of the committee appointed to integrate with the NYMC. I'd be very happy to see a kind of annual conference return where we can all kind of share thoughts and see what's happening around the UK. In the Connolly Club, we've certainly advised the Young German Masons Club out in Germany last year on how they should operate. And so that knowledge being ported forward is always really exciting.
And Neil, time is running out sadly, but what's your thoughts on that? How can we share our learning? And we've touched on one or two of those. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so we talked earlier on about the standards of rules and constitution. And what we'd like to do eventually is have a register of all the light blues clubs across the country, so that we can actually help those areas that perhaps haven't got one. So the constitution would then get rolled out to those clubs and areas that haven't got it. That then future-proofs the way that the club can operate, and also allow it to be handed on to the next party of custodians. And then the final thing is, yes, this recognition at the highest level by an annual event. And there is certainly a willingness to make that happen, and that should happen in 2025. And as we said earlier on, our Assistant Grandmaster, Stephen Varley, talked about the get your diaries out 31st of the 5th date of next year for the quarterly communications. So all of those together perhaps is the way forward.
Brethren, sadly, we're at our last question now, and it's probably the most important one. Ladies and gentlemen and brethren, wherever you are at home, please forgive me for not getting to your question. We only have a small amount of time to do so, but I appreciate every single one of them, and we see every single one of them as well, and usually pass those on. So, last question. What would you say to someone wanting to join a light blues club, or indeed set up a light blues club, if they haven't already got one? Matt, nice easy question for you to finish with.
I'd say do it. It's a perfect opportunity for you to network with other new Masons, make new lifelong friends, and get out there and do something different.
That's a really good point. Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Chris? So somebody wanting to join a club and perhaps hasn't got a club already.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to do, and I think it's just that idea of being mindful of actually how much goes on, and that you don't have to get involved with absolutely everything. I'm one of these people that's really guilty of, I'll do that, I'll get involved in that, and then all of a sudden you're overwhelmed with things. So I think it's a really useful thing to have that kind of like, oh, no, that's a really good idea, but actually I might just step back from that one.
It's true. And Adam, what's your thoughts on that? When it comes to all of what you've heard from the other brethren so far.
I mean, I can only echo the sentiments said already. I mean, it's been life-changing for me. It's certainly, I've met some of my now closest friends who I think I'll probably have for the rest of my life through the Connolly Club. And it gives me great pleasure to give that back to other people in the future. And so to those who are thinking about joining, I'd say absolutely do it. It's a fantastic experience. And for those thinking about setting one up, if you're the kind of person who wants to give other people that opportunity, absolutely go for it.
Oh, wise words. And sir, and I say with all sincerity, your province are very lucky to have you, Neil. I mean that with all sincerity. Someone who's immersed in Freemasonry, especially with new and young clubs as well. So what would you say the future of light blues clubs is looking when you look into the distance? How's that looking?
Well, the future's bright, the future's light blue, I suppose, is the to coin something that people are old enough to remember that advert. Look, I think the thing is, I didn't have anything like this 30 odd years ago. I probably visited half a dozen times in the first 10 years that I was a Mason. I nearly left Masonry 3 times. Those 3 issues still exist. There's a revelation. If you have a light blues club, you'll get greater engagement, and that's got to be a good thing. If you haven't got one and you want to set one up, there's help out there. Look me up. I'll send you the rules that we've drafted up. We can send that out to anybody. PGM, a Provincial Grandmaster who's listening, or to anyone who wants to set up. Tread carefully. You won't change the world. Masonry is a lifelong journey, and you take it one step at a time.
And that is our Solomon Live this evening. Brethren, gentlemen, have you enjoyed your time having our chat this evening?
Absolutely, yes, it's been fantastic.
Been great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you've been absolutely brilliant. Well done. And you've done your province and your club's very proud, everybody. So that brings us on to our next Solomon Live. Next will be Tuesday, the 6th of August, where our topic will be Freemasonry on campus. Now, we're going to be discussing UGLE University Scheme, and we'll be joined by Stephen Wire, Provincial Grandmaster of Worcestershire, and my boss. So definitely looking forward to that. That could be the end of a wonderful Masonic career for me. Together with others from around the country will be joining us. So that's Tuesday, the 6th of August, live at 7:30 UK time, Freemasonry on campus. And if you haven't done so already, please do it when you get the next few minutes. Please join and register Solomon. You'll find it at solomon.ugle.org.uk, full of useful and fantastic content for your daily advancement in Masonic knowledge. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next month.